Thanks for joining us. It's nice to see someone from Alberta, even if you are from Calgary. I want to ask, were you aware of these conflicts that were going on? Like, it was systemic. It wasn't like one or two that governance missed. Like, this was widespread systemic fraud being committed. You were a vice president, so high level. Were you aware of any of these?
So how I would be made aware is if there was a conflict declared, then I would be
I didn't
aware.
ask that. Were you aware of these conflicts?
So I was aware that there were conflicts that some board members had because they were declared
and what did you do with that?
So in my role as a vice president ecosystems, I always did my best to manage these conflicts of interest and to ensure that the stewardships of public funds was done in the best way possible.
Were you aware that in the contribution agreement it was required that the foundation report conflicts or perceived conflicts to the ministry or to the minister?
Yes, I was aware of that, and it was my understanding that there was a departmental liaison who had access to the board materials, including the minutes.
Right.
And
so
the complex would have been
let me just ask again. So you were aware that they were required to be reported to the minister. Did you ever follow up on any of those to ensure that these conflicts were addressed?
I appreciate the question from the honourable member. It was not my responsibility to report those
I'm sorry.
conflicts.
You were a vice president, probably a public service, well-compensated vice president, and you didn't believe it was your job to report these. We had a whistleblower, and I'm sure you've read the testimony because you reported on it. He was not a high-level senior executive like yourself, but he had the bravery to come forward and try and stop this fraud. But yourself as a vice president, you didn't see it as your responsibility to follow up on this? Help me out here.
It was my understanding these conflicts were reported into the department by us providing them with copies of the minutes of the board meetings, the materials from the board meetings.
Fraud went on for years. You just turned a blind eye. So you were aware. You said, okay, well, we reported it through minutes, but it continued for years. $400 million stolen from taxpayers. And yet, as a vice president, you did your job by sending along an email or sending along minutes and then walking away. Like, I'm just flabbergasted how this could happen. Well, I guess I don't have an answer.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a question.
Okay, I'm flabbergasted. How did you allow that to happen? Like, in what world does a vice president, a well-paid, well-compensated, well-pensioned vice president, not take any responsibility when taxpayers' money is being defrauded? I could see one off. If it happened once, okay, I saw the minutes went up the line, but this went on for years. Millions stolen for years. And you were aware, and you were a vice president, but it was like a shrug. Sir, I don't think I'm going to get a response. I'm going to turn my final minute over to Ms. Sinclair Deguenet.
Très bien, vous avez 1 minute 4 secondes, s'il vous plaît.
I'll give you another opportunity to answer the question. And I'll continue in the same vein as what Mr. McCauley has been asking. Not only did you not report either to the board or to the department these conflicts of interest, you were part of it because you yourself were hiring Mr. Wormold to do the assessments on applications that he himself had written. So do you not understand what a conflict of interest is? I'm asking you a clear question. Do you understand what a conflict of interest is?
Oui ou non?
Yes or no?
I certainly have strengthened my understanding of conflict of interest.
Quand vous avez été
to
engagé
ensure
en
that I
2016, est-ce que quand vous avez été engagé en 2016,
When you were hired in 2016, did you follow conflict of interest training? Did you follow the training? Did you take it?
Yes, I would have familiarized myself with the
Et
conflict
donc,
of
vous n'aviez
interest
pas
policy
compris
upon joining the organization.
avant le rapport de la
And so before the Auditor General's report, you hadn't understood what conflict of interest was, even though you followed the training? It seemed normal to you that a person draft an application and then go over to SDTC to assess that same application? Does that seem normal to you? And not reporting this kind of behavior to the board so that the board approved the project without knowing that there was a huge conflict of interest within that project, does that seem normal to you?
So I'm going to have to say, like, all of these matters were thoroughly reviewed by the Auditor General. They've made a number of recommendations to strengthen the conflict of interest practices at SDTC. The Foundation has accepted all of those recommendations, and I'm certainly following the policies and practices that are in place.
Thank you very much. Suivant, c'est M. Drouin pour 5 minutes.